Have you ever wondered how actors, when they get a new role, for example in a movie, and they need to learn a new language, how is it that they learn it so fast? Well, I asked myself that very question and decided to do a deep dive into the actors process last week and what they do exactly to sound so fluent speaking another language. And I realized, actually, a lot of it could be applied by anyone who's learning English. So I've decided to invite Ethan to explore this topic, and today we'll share with you some practical tips to level up your speaking skills faster. And the best part is that you won't need to pay the thousands of dollars that actors invest to learn all of this. So let's get started. So I have here in the global studio with me today, Mr. V himself. How's it going, Ethan?
Who's Mr. V? What is this Mr. V all about?
This is Mr. Vocabulary, if I'm not mistaken. This is your old nickname from the podcast.
I used to be very good at spontaneously using advanced expressions and slang and words and so on. But I think I've maybe lost that somewhat just from like learning different languages. There's only so much space in one's head.
I think you still got it a bit.
I can put myself to the test today, see if I can pop out some high-level vocabulary.
So let's see. Actually, I got a clip for us to start this lesson with that is a lot of fun because we're going to talk today all about how actors learn new languages so fast. And before we go into it, let's see how the cast or some actors from the Lord of the Rings movies actually had to learn how to speak the language of the elves. So this is Liv Tyler. Do you know Liv Tyler, Ethan, the actress?
I do. I just put together that lesson on like my top 10 series for learners to watch in 2025, right? And she's one of the stars in one of the ones that I shared, which is The Leftovers. So people can check that out if they need series recommendations. But I liked that you brought her to this lesson as well in a completely different role from that series.
Nice. Yeah, this is an early role, right? It's from 2003. The films, I believe they were still filming it, so people didn't know it. It's funny how they were talking about Lord of the Rings, like the movies, and they haven't seen it. So let's check it out.
Did what part are you playing?
I'm an elf, an elven princess named Arwen.
You are very tall to be an elf, aren't you?
Elves are actually just totally, everybody's confused. Elves in Tolkien's world are incredibly tall and slender, and they're kind of like alien looking a little bit. They're very otherworldly.
Elves are tall and
huge. Like I was a short elf, and I'm 5'10".
Wow. Okay. And giants in Tolkien's world are little people.
Yeah.
And you had to learn an elf language for that, didn't you?
Speak Elvish, yeah.
It's called Elvish?
Elvish, baby.
Yeah, I thought you meant Elvish, you know.
Elvish, yeah.
What does it sound, what does elf language sound like?
It's actually really funny. I can't even remember my name sometimes, but I never forget my Elvish lines, which is really bizarre. One line is, Lauhirnin udaleniriu, anirach nuilu guanad uingwaithlin.
That sounds kind of cool.
I wake up in the middle of the night speaking Elvish for some reason.
It's cool. It sounds kind of Gaelic, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it actually has. It's very beautiful.
That's great.
All right. So some expressions there, by the way. Let's talk about that because like you are Mr. V. So so teach me, Mr. V. What did you catch there?
So around elf, there's like all these different word formations, right? She said that she plays an elven princess. So I guess that's like, maybe this is kind of like a rare word to use, but it's like the adjective form of elf, right? Elven. And Elvish is the language. And she makes a joke there. It's like, Elvish, baby.
Elvish, baby.
Yeah.
Like, because it's Elvis reference, like a play on words there.
Elvis Presley.
Which is quite funny because she has like this really meek sounding or very kind of timid, soft voice, right? And when she did that, it's like kind of shocking because it's so out of character for that really soft voice that she has.
Yeah. She described elves as being slender. So one of the words she used.
That's a good point. Skinny, right? But it's maybe skinny can sound sometimes a little bit like you're unhealthy, and slender is maybe more of a compliment.
But then in an alien-looking way, like otherworldly, or
yeah,
that's hard, right? To say, let's pronounce like otherworldly.
It's like world and other, so they're from another world, right? But it's then put into an adverb, so it's otherworldly as if they came from a different world. I took note too that she said that she's a short elf, albeit that she is 5'10". So that's the imperial system, right? It's different from the metric system. 5'10". I'm not sure. Do you know what it is in centimeters or meters? Or maybe our
5'10"
producer Chi can look it
It's
up.
like 178 centimeters
178
or so.
There you go.
178. Yeah, so she's taller than I am. So
Me as well.
quite tall. And for an elf, I think that's okay. So anyway, I thought of bringing this because, see, actors, they do what they need to do to get it done. And if that means learning a made-up language, made-up means like a created by a person, like not naturally happening. It's like a made-up language, they'll do it.
So much so that she would wake up in the middle of the night speaking Elvish. I don't know if she was sleeping in bed with someone, like if she was married or had a partner at that time. But I imagine it'd be really, really bizarre to have the person waking up next to you speaking like a made-up language. I was curious, like, how did they create a language like Elvish? Do you have any idea? I've heard actually like J.R.R. Tolkien, the author, actually created a lot of it himself, but then for the movies, they had to make it audible, right? Like they actually had to make it into something that that had a sound to it.
Well, Tolkien was a linguist and a philologist. I think that's the profession, the career, which means he was not just a linguist. He was obsessed with all the cultural aspect behind it. So I heard that he actually started creating languages when he was a teenager, just for fun, because he was writing into languages. So from that point on, I think it just naturally occurred that he decided, okay, when I'm writing Lord of the Rings, it makes sense that they have their own language. And I think like 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗟𝗶𝗀𝗵, because there's two Elvish languages. There's 𝗥𝗲𝗹 and Sindarin. So there's two. Like, why would a person make two languages for their own stories? Like, isn't one enough? All right, guys. So if you are interested in this part of our conversation where we're talking all about Lord of the Rings and made-up languages, Liv Tyler, then click the link in the description below to access the full version of this lesson that includes all these parts. And also, it's where you can get access to vocabulary practice, so you can learn and master all of the expressions that we use, the advanced expressions we use in this lesson. So click the link below, and we'll see you over there.
All right, Izzy. So we've all heard these stories of actors who they have to prepare for some part that they're going to do, and they kind of miraculously, for us mere humans, it seems miraculous that they're able to learn a language, even something made up like Elvish or Dothraki or Valyrian, right? In just a few months. So I think anyone who came to this video or came to this lesson, they're wondering how is that possible? How do they do it?
So I went really deep into researching this and found out some really interesting things, because as an English teacher, it was really great to see how the dialect coaches, the professionals who help the actors, by the way, this is one great point about this, like they have professionals who help them. So they need guidance, right? And we're your guides here. So these guides, the dialect coaches, they focus on what really matters. Like the things that will really move the needle will help them make real progress, right? The actors. And so I would even say they focus on the 20% of the 80-20. It's a nice concept that we teach within the real life way, our method for learning English. Now, how would you define the 80-20 idea, Ethan?
All right, so this is also often referred to as Pareto's principle, which I guess after the person who sort of discovered it. But this is, it's sort of a phenomenon, meaning it's something that is common throughout nature, that there's like a divide of like 80 and 20%, where usually like 20% of the effort gives you 80% of results. This could be, for example, say in business, that probably if you have 100 customers, there's probably like 20 of them where like the grand majority of your income comes from, because they're like your biggest fans, they buy the most from you. And you were talking about it in linguistics, right? Because these dialect coaches who are helping actors to learn the languages, they realize the time is short. So they're like looking for, okay, what can we leverage? What is the most important information for you to really get down so that you can convincingly speak this language? And there's the case where like maybe the person will actually learn the language or not for the role. Sometimes they just need to learn, they're just going to memorize the lines, but they still need to know how to deliver that in a way that it sounds convincing, right? That they're having the right pronunciation, that they don't, if they're an American actor, they're not just like speaking Italian, but with a completely American accent if they're supposed to actually be an Italian character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like let's see, think of a word in Italian. It's like arrivederci or something like that. Like,
Arrivederci.
yeah. It's like, can you imagine like a director hires like
Prego.
casts an actor and be like, okay, so you're gonna speak Italian. Like these are your lines. See you in 3 months, and then I come back. It's like arrivederci. It's like,
Arrivederci.
so to master the sounds, it takes work, it takes effort. And what's really interesting about this, and valuable, I would even say, is that it counts. I know they're not learning the language per se, and some actors do. We're going to talk about that too. Some actors actually learn the language for life, right? But most don't. Many don't. But still, that's immensely valuable to learn what they're doing there, because if they wanted to, they could go ahead and learn those languages much more easily too, because they've already mastered the sounds, right? The intonation and everything, which is a big portion of the language. I would even say the spoken language. So yeah, that's a nice definition of the 80-20, right? And what I would even say is that like 20% of the words usually in a language, and in any language, 20% of the words in the entire lexicon, the list of all words in the language, appear 80% of the time. Like they take up 80% of all space in people's speech, right?
And you even go down from there that it's like 20% of those words are used like even, more often, even like 80% of that time. So it's kind of like there's usually like 1,000 words that we're using like 95% of the time or something like this, which I think that's really, it definitely makes it feel a lot more digestible to learn a language when you know that, okay, if I master 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 3,000 words, which is possible. I mean, like on the RealLife English app, if you're watching this on the app, we're giving you a lot of tools to help you to do that. And even to personalize this to you with the words you actually need. Now we have the vocabulary manager, right? So if you guys haven't used that yet here on the app, that can definitely make it even more digestible for you. So if you learn this 20% of the language, then you're already going to be really confident in most situations. You'll already be a fluent English speaker. And then from there, it's kind of like this optimization of maybe learning more specific vocabulary that you need for your job, for your hobbies, for certain situations, to maybe sound a little bit more advanced when you're speaking or understand like literature and so on, right?
Right, Ethan. So this was an interesting discussion about the 80-20. And again, we're talking about this because dialect coaches focus on the 20% that matters more, right? They will give you the big results that you want. And this is the case for English learning too. So we're going to talk about now how these 3 aspects that I've discovered, because I did deep research on this and I discovered these 3 aspects of how actors learn new languages so fast that apply perfectly to English learning in any context, right? If you want to become fluent, actually fluent, not like translate in your head, speak without like having to think. These are things that apply as well, because actors, they have to be in that mood too, right? They don't want to be thinking. They just need to flow.
Usually they have to sound like a native as well, right? So if some of you want to sound like a native, that's going to be really helpful.
Anyway, so these 3 aspects are creating immersion for yourself. The second is go crazy with the mimicking, like a parrot, never stop mimicking. And 3, also practice, practice, practice. So we're going to talk about these 3. Let's start from creating your own immersion. Actors, they're paid millions, so they can definitely go and travel, right? Some don't. They decide to just stay where they are and create the immersion, like the environment in their house, for example. We're going to talk about later how Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, she kind of did that in her kitchen, right? While learning one of the made-up languages in that show. So for example, I remember doing this myself because I didn't travel until I was already fluent, right? I didn't go to the United States until I was already speaking like this. So I developed this here in Brazil, like this way of speaking, even the accent. So what I did was basically I wouldn't watch much TV in like Portuguese, my native language. Most of the programs, the shows that I'd watch would be in English, including the sports show. Because as a teenager and young adult, I would watch a lot of basketball and American football, and basically all American sports. And there's so many. I already brought that up in another lesson, and this is true. Like that's how I created immersion for me. So later, when I made my first friend, who was an English speaker, this native speaker from the U.S., when we were teaching at a language school, he was also a sports fan. So that was, for me, it was perfect because I had the vocabulary and I had already created immersion. So for him, it was like wait, but how'd you know this? Like that's a lot of like cultural insights and stuff. Like how'd you know what happened in 2010 with this team or whatever, right? So that was the first thing that I did, and actors do that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about immersion, right, in our lessons. I wanted to, maybe this is a good segue to mimicry, but I wanted just to take note of how you were saying what your colleague, the question that he asked you, like, how'd you know this? You didn't say, how did you know this? You said, how'd you notice? How'd you notice? So it's basically that, right? That you probably were immersing yourself. You started to notice that that native speakers didn't say that kind of robotic, how did you know this, that most learners are learning in school, but you started like hearing the music behind it and the connected speech, like this, how'd you notice, how'd you notice, how'd you notice, to the point that it became so natural for you that you would say it that way yourself, right?
Exactly, because I was, as we say, I was living my English, and that was offering me opportunities to activate my English, which means is to not be just like passively watching, consuming something, but opening my mouth and mimicking.
I think you mentioned that this was really important for you with Friends, right? Like Friends was one of your go-to series that helped you to pick up the language, and we've heard that from so many learners and everything.
Yeah, even actors, right? I don't know, like Ana de Armas, is that her name?
Ana de Armas.
Yeah, she learned English by watching Friends, she claims.
I speak English, but I didn't when I first got to the U.S. I was born in Cuba, came to America when I was 26, and I learned English the way everyone who comes to this country does, by watching Friends.
And I'm working on a lesson now with one of the singers from the BTS, the K-pop band, the super famous, and he claims the same thing, that he had friends, like he even said like Chandler, he feels like a total Chandler, and like Chandler was kind of like his English-speaking father, the person that he looked to.
Yes, I taught myself English.
How did you teach yourself English?
Actually, my English teacher was the sitcom, Friends.
Oh, you watched
legendary.
Friends?
Yes.
So we talk about this a lot too, right? That it's important to find that person or maybe a couple people that you really look to as your English-speaking parents, the same that you had parents who taught you your native language, that you have those people that in particular, you really pay attention to their way of speaking and you mimic with them, you try to emulate their way of speaking. And this brought up for me a specific actor, a movie that I absolutely love called The Walk, which is it's a true story about a tightrope walker, a French tightrope walker who travels to the United States because he wants to put a tightrope between the Twin Towers, which they were building at that time, the ones that fell during 9/11. And it's really interesting because the actor that plays, he's an American that's playing this French tightrope walker. His name's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like people probably have seen him in some movie because he's quite famous. And he was just like an ardent Francophile. That basically means that a Francophile is like someone who is in love with the French language and culture and so on.
Non, c'est pas vrai. Il y a beaucoup de, je sais pas le mot, rumors. Rumeur. Il y a beaucoup de rumeurs.
So he already spoke some French, but then he really went all in for this part. Like he got to meet the real guy. His name is Philippe Petit, who was the tightrope walker. He got to spend time with him. And so he sort of had this Philippe Petit as his French-speaking father, right? And he was really spending all of his time just speaking with him, getting to know his way of speaking, the sort of vocabulary, idiom, slang that he in particular used, his mannerisms, like, maybe his gestures and facial expressions when he spoke. So that's really amazing. If you can go that deep, if you find that person, it's like, oh man, I love this person's way of speaking English, and I want to speak English just like them. So I'm going to really obsess over everything like that they do when they speak English and try to speak just like them. So you're adopting an English-speaking parent in that sense.
That's very nice. And I've already shared who my English-speaking parent is. I can leave that link to that lesson in the description. You can know more about that and how to actually do that. And interestingly, also, I believe all of our lessons with movies and TV series that you can watch on our app, we do mimicry, like mimic exercises for connected speech and pronunciation, because we really believe in this, and also because most successful learners do this, right? They mimic by using like media. So any opportunity you have, like if you're watching a podcast like this one, and movies and series are like, it's really opportune to use that moment to do this because we're always doing it. We're always watching shows and movies.
What's that, an opportune moment?
Well, think about the word opportunity. You probably know that, right, learners? So it's a moment that you can find an opportunity in, and it's convenient for you to do that.
I think like probably the perfect thing that learners can do for all three of these, for immersion, mimicking, and what we're going to talk about now, like the practice, which we say 3 times because that's actually a collocation in English, is like practice, is with the learners to TV lessons, right? Because we have like the connected speech, like you said, the vocabulary. If you're learning here on the app, you have the vocabulary flashcards as well. So you get the immersion in something that you already love, like a TV series, a movie, or a celebrity. You get to mimic in each lesson with the connected speech, with that people, with those characters, and so on. And if you kind of binge those, if you watch a lot of those lessons, then you're kind of like the practice. So maybe that's a great segue to our third tip, Izzy.
Nice, yeah. So as you already explained, practice. We repeat it because it's a collocation and it matters. And it's an obsession almost. Like actors, that's their craft. It's repeating lines, learning lines by repetition. It's their bread and butter, right?
What does that mean if something's your bread and butter? It's a very descriptive idiom.
Yeah, it's the thing you always go back to. It's your thing, your main thing, right? And in this case, it's their professional thing. It's the way they actually, later when we see them in movies, can rest assured, that's how they learned all those lines, right? Most of these actors go through this process. And it's interesting that this is totally applicable to learning a language. Most people don't do this because maybe it's hard. There's a lot of resistance, right? To how am I going to practice?
It's tedious, right?
Also, yeah, it can be, but it doesn't have to be, right? And also it depends on the way you view it. Because if you're just, say, like writing your own sentences and like reading them, it sounds like a boring thing to do that maybe in the 50s people would say, tell you to do that. But as we were just saying, like if there was a movie or a scene that you're watching and you have subtitles and you want to repeat those, it's already a great way to do it, and you're already into it, and you can even have the reference of the actor saying it too. But any script would do, really. So just finding what works for you and already preparing that will already remove a lot of the resistance, I would say. All right, so let me summarize what we just covered here. Creating immersion for yourself. So that's about your environment and about your routine, right? Your habits. If there's not something right now that you always go back to, a habit in English, say my example was TV series or TV shows, actually sports TV shows that I'm really into as a teenager, that I'll just go back to them and they'll kind of be a big part of my life, a big part of my world. So create immersion for yourself. It's the first thing. Second thing, mimic like crazy, like a parrot. Really do it, like to the point that's almost annoying to people who are sitting next to you, like you're watching a movie and suddenly it's like, like otherworldly. Let me say that again, right? Just keep repeating, and that will take you to actually master, to the point of mastery over those words. So the third thing was practice, as we were just explaining. That is more deliberate. So create those moments where you can do just like actors, grab your script or your lines, read them, open your mouth. It doesn't matter if you're reading, if you're just like coming up with lines. It just matters that you work in the muscle of articulation and get used to speaking, right? Because actors, they do that. They need to get used to saying those lines naturally. It can't be forced. It can't be, they can't be like thinking about the phonemes, the sounds. So the only way to do that is by practicing. It's like my example that I always say this because it just makes sense. Like driving. How are you going to feel like it's natural for you if you don't drive? So drive, speak. And just to show where this can take you, I have a very good example here of Robert De Niro, the actor, who won an Oscar speaking a language that he actually didn't speak. Like it was just the lines, and he mastered it, which was quite an obscure language, Sicilian. Not Italian, Sicilian. How crazy is that?
Io ariseto tutti cosi, e o menzogni non ne dico mai alla amici miei. I deci romani voiavoci a parlare con fannucci. I trovava domanare I soldi.
So, Ethan, do you know what method acting is? This term called method acting?
I've heard of it, but maybe you can enlighten me.
So, method acting is kind of like it's a stereotype that we hear when actors really go deep into their characters. and some kind of like get close to losing
sense of reality.
exactly, because they're just in the character, right? So when they're between takes, between shots, they're still in character. So they're gonna speak like them, they're gonna talk like them, they're gonna pretend they don't know things that they should know about their own lives, because they don't want to lose that, right? So that's the commitment that they have for really mastering these characters, and I think we could do the same. I didn't think exactly like this, like an actor, when I was learning English, but in a way I kind of did, because I was committed to immersing myself in it. So I chose deliberately to watch this show, or I'm gonna switch the language to English on my phone and computer and everything. So it can be very deliberate about it. And method acting, it's really exactly about that obsession over it. So one of the directors that worked with him, her name is 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗟𝗶𝗳𝗟. I learned this in my research. I'm going to quote here. She said that Bobby is more meticulous. He's very imaginative. He's very precise. He figures things out both outside and inside. That's it. Like using your imagination and being very detail oriented. That's what meticulous mean.
And I think you can almost see like your English speaking self as like a part that you're playing. I think this can even be helpful for some people, because I know a lot of people, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome exactly, but some people, it just feels like off to them to try to mimic like an American accent or a British accent, or, even just like trying to reduce their accent speaking the language, because they kind of feel like they're silly, or that like they're ridiculous, But I think if you think of it as almost like I'm playing a part, then it's kind of like, okay, it's this English speaking version of myself that, has this accent that feels silly to me. But I think like with practice, it becomes more and more natural. And it's kind of been a feeling I've had, because I've learned several languages, and like my personality changes a little bit in different languages, just because in some sense I'm also adapting myself a little bit to the culture. I try to at least to adapt myself to the culture, and how Brazilian people are when I speak Portuguese, how Catalan people are when I speak Catalan, for example. And so again, like you can think about it like a little bit different version of yourself, and that might help you to wrap your head around some of that initial silliness that you feel.
Very good point, because like you're accessing different parts of your personality ultimately too, right? You're expanding it. But Ethan, the other day you actually showed me a very nice message from one of our learners that uses our app, that I just thought we could show it here.
Okay, so this shout out goes to 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗟𝗶𝗬𝗟. Sorry if I said your name wrong, if I butchered it. But they say, Real Life English is absolutely brilliant. I'm learning so many practical things I can actually use right away, not just textbook stuff. The modern interface is sleek and super easy to navigate, making learning feel effortless. But the real game changer, the flashcard system. It's not your grandma's flashcards. It's smart, engaging, and makes vocabulary and phrases sink in deep. This app makes mastering real everyday English generally enjoyable and effective. Highly, highly recommend. So thanks so much, Ali. It's really great to hear that because this is exactly why we're doing it. It's exactly why we built the app. And if you're not using it yourself, you're totally missing out on having a 5-star experience like Ali is. We build these tools because we know they work. A lot of them are tools that we've used ourselves in learning English or in learning other languages. And we truly believe in it as something to help you to reach your goal of breaking out of intermediate and becoming an advanced, natural, confident English speaker. So it's free for you to get started, and you can learn with this very lesson, as we were saying earlier, by clicking the link down in the description below from your phone.
Ah, yeah. And it does seem like Ali is learning already some interesting vocabulary here, like sleek. The interface is sleek. That's nice. What does that mean?
So I would think of this word a lot in like technological advertisements and so on, where you see all of these close-ups of like this computer or this phone, and it just looks beautiful. It looks elegant. It looks like something you want to get your hands on and use. So I think that's where you'll see, that's the kind of situation where you'll see this word sleek used a lot. All right, guys. So those of you watching the app, this part is just for you. It's exclusively here on the app. We're going to be talking a bit about what we brought up earlier, right? About these professionals, these experts that help actors to become really convincing in a language, even if they're not actually learning it to fluency, even if they're just learning it to be able to repeat some lines in a way that people will believe that they really speak that language, right? Hey, so I wanted to invite you to pop over to the Real Life English app and watch the rest of today's lesson, which is just for members of the app. But it's absolutely free for you to get access to. Just tap the link down in the description below from your phone now. And Izzy and I are going to be sharing with you some exercises that real dialect coaches, those coaches that work with actors to help them to perfect different languages, these are real exercises that they use with their clients. And so it's a really great way, a free way for you to get access to some of these tricks that actors use to become really convincing with the language so that you can sound more natural and more fluent too when you speak English. All right. Really, guys, these tips are going to really shift the way that you think about learning languages. You're going to find it super helpful. So don't miss out on that. And I look forward to seeing you over on the Real Life English app. Aw, yeah.